I've used your technology a little bit before the show. It's fascinating because most people work on, say, technical analysis or fundamental analysis. They trade on charts, they trade on earnings, all great stuff for sure. They're wonderful. But one of the things, and this is an interesting concept, and I'd love for you to unpack, is trading around events, a hurricane, a CEO departure, a oil price crash, whatever, an event. And one of the things at Levelfield that I love is you kind of introduce a third methodology outside of technical and fundamentals, which is event-driven trading. So talk about what event-driven trading is, and how does that technology help people to profit?
Sure. Yeah. So event-driven trading is, in concept, not new. All the largest hedge funds and most successful ones in the world have at least 10 to 15% of their assets under management typically devoted to some kind of event-driven investing. You can look at what's happening in the news, have an understanding of how that is going to impact a market, an industry, sector, or a stock in the near term. The reason I like event-driven investing is that it is predictable. You're not trying to figure out what is going to be the next Amazon 20 years from now, which is something that a lot of these sort of, blogs and stock picking sites will say they're doing. It's not possible. Nobody knows the future 20 years ago. 20 years from now, you're not going to know what it's going to look like. But you can figure out what it's going to look like 3 days from now. And so it's more like looking at the weather. You have kind of a 10-day forecast. After that, it gets a little foggy. You're not really sure what's going to happen. But, if rain is predicted for 2 days from now, it's probably going to rain. And that's similar to event-driven investing. If you have a bad news event, the Department of Justice comes out and files a massive lawsuit against your company, it's probably going to drive the share price down. And I think we all can agree to that. And you can react to that. And you could say, I think this is a blip. I'm going to buy on this. Or if you were, taking a short position, you could buy puts and make some money that way real quick. The nice thing about it is that I think it works really well with human brains, because we're always trying to file information based upon what we know to be true and sort of support our own bits of knowledge. The other thing I like about it is that you don't need to have a 20 years experience on Wall Street. You don't need to be an expert in fundamental analysis or take a Warren Buffett type approach to, having a margin of safety for everything that you're investing in, because you're not looking to be in that stock for the rest of your life. You might be in that stock for 5 minutes. You might be in it for 5 days or 5 months. So you don't need to be thinking about all the technical analysis and whether or not you see a triple top or a bullish engulfing indicator. You just say, it's going to go up. Whatever the charts look like afterwards, how fast it goes up, it's going to go up or it's going to go down. And you can take the analytics of it and really predict, almost in like Las Vegas odds, right? Like, hey, we've got a 85% chance of this particular event impacting stocks the way that it has impacted all these other stocks in the past. It just makes it really easy. So it's lowering the barriers to entry for a lot of people that really find it difficult to figure out, like, how do I start with the strategy? There's a million strategies. There's so many stocks. Like, where do I get started? Is often what we hear among some of the beginner traders that use our platform. And they like the fact that when they look at a chart on Levelfields, we actually have the events right on the chart. So when you see this big drop, right at the top of that drop, it says, bankruptcy filing. Like, oh, okay, that's why it dropped. Those who are trying to understand what's happening day to day in the market can just look at the system and quickly understand what's driving these big price movements. Because unless you're sitting on a news feed all day on one stock, you're not going to be able to do that.
Got it. My question is, though, are people actually making money at this? I mean, this sounds very cool, almost too good to be true. So you have all these agents, they're scanning the market, they're analyzing tons of data, like you said, speed reading. So imagine using a technology, folks, where you have all of these analysts that are analyzing things as literally their job, but now it's at a speed that is completely unheard of until now. And so using Levelfields, it allows you to synthesize all of that information. Like you said, it's like there's so much, there's no way one trader can synthesize this in a timely way and actually get in front of that and make a decent position. But the question is, well, all of that's good, because I've seen a lot of flash. So forgive me if I sound a little skeptical, but I really want to make sure that this is good. Are people actually making money at this, though? What are you seeing?
Yes, for sure. I mean, I would say, just as a disclaimer, markets can get crazy. No matter how good your signals are, there are days that are just going to swamp those signals. Got politicians invading other countries and declaring war, and that's going to always overcome a strong signal like we see. But having said that, the correlations in the platform are really strong and people are making money off the platform. Just a recent example, only a few days ago, Supermicro Computer got hit with this nasty short seller report. So it's a hedge fund that they do almost like investigative reporting. They put out 30, 40 page report on their findings. Their findings said that SMCI is falsifying their accounting records, making their revenues look much higher than they actually were. They said that not only that, but they were violating different types of sanctions against exporting their technologies overseas to China and Russia. And it was a scathing report. So
yeah, sounds
it
like
doesn't sound good, right? But you don't really know how big a deal this is unless you know who that short seller is. And our system has been trained to identify, specific short sellers that are accurate, ignore the ones that are just kind of noise based on the data, not our opinion. In this case, if you look on the platform, it says on average in the first week, this scenario, this event is going to drive the share price down 17% on average across like the last 35 events like this. So what happened? SMCI is down 21% in the week, just tanks. I had a little extra sauce on it because it was so frothy to begin with. And I did hear that one of our interns just bought a $300 put as soon as the alert came out through the system. And by the end of the day, that $300 was $3,000. So he had a 10x return in a day.
Wow.
And that was like 3 months of rent for him. So he was super happy.
You buy a lot of ramen. I've been an intern too.
A lot of ramen or a lot of beer.
Yeah, no, I got it, man. So phenomenal. Holy smokes. So that's one example. Do you have others?
I've got tons of others. So we have two levels, I should say. We have sort of like the do-it-yourself level, which is a couple $100 a year for subscription, and then the more premium one, where effectively our analysts are paid to kind of cherry pick the alerts from the system and sort of explain the best like entry and exit points. So we send those out to very loyal subscribers of the platform. One of the ones we send out, we got a lot of flack for early on because it was a home builder, and it was like, we'll say mid 2023. Pulte Group is the name of the company. PHM is the ticker.
Yeah, huge.
And then we said like, buy this company. Like all the signals are really positive. And of course, interest rates were going up. And the logic is, well, in an environment where interest rates are rising really rapidly, housing is supposed to suck, right?
Yep.
It didn't make sense that this stock would be going well. So we had a couple of our users like reach out and be like, you guys are nuts. Like, why would you pick the worst sector, literally textbook sector to be shorting? And we just said, I don't really care what the rules are. I'm telling you what we see. They're doing all these kinds of return of capital. They're beating earnings. Like all the data is showing us that this is working out. So we said, this is a buy and this is a hold. And then from that position, the short version is up 100% since then. And we got a lot of the same users came back. We're like, all right, I was wrong. You're right. Like, appreciate that. It was good. Glad you explained it. And part of the explanation for that was there is a housing shortage. So if you have to buy a house and nobody is selling their house, like nobody's moving from their house because we're all in mortgages that are 3-4% from the COVID days. So there's no volume of homes. The only place to get a house is a new one from a home builder. Not only that, because they're building the house and selling the house and making pretty good margin on the house, they don't have to gouge you on the loan. And they're offering loans that were 5.5% when the rest of the loans were 8% at the time. It was a supply demand issue. They had all the tailwinds. The data was telling us this was a positive story. And we would even go through these weeks in the market where like the stock would tank, it would go down because they were pumping this narrative on CNBC and other channels that home builders dead, housing is dead, real estate's the worst. We're looking at it like, these guys are crushing it. Just don't listen to them. Don't listen to them. And sure enough, the next earnings report came out and then the next stock buyback and the next dividend increase, it just ripped. And so, we had different trade setups that we sent out. Some were equity only and some other folks who follow us do options trades. So the options trades were doing like 50-60% in a month or 2 months. Mm-hmm. Close it out, wait for a dip, do it again. So there's a lot of money made on that one.
Follow and subscribe for more. Level Field's Elite Investing, Effortless AI.